Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and the season is getting close. We're only, Shane, 3.5 weeks away from opening night against New Mexico at 7:30 on a Saturday. I cannot freaking wait.
And I know you're going to be there, right? You're always there, and you stay until the end unless it gets really, really ugly one way or the other. And I'll definitely try to make it to one or two.
I was going to say, you going to go with me to a game this year?
Of course. Well, of course. I mean, I have the, you're the diehard. You go to every home game. I have the excuse now of having a young child, which really does make things more difficult. But yes, we went to a couple last year. The Washington game and the Utah game. The Utah game was more fun. But the Washington game, that was kind of that was Noah Fifita's first start, and we saw some glimpses of how good they could be, and then they put it all together. And the Utah game was a ton of fun, even with the rain. So I'll definitely get down to one or two. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's hard to know. I mean, it's always hard to know these days, but especially with the new coaching staff, what to expect from this team. And how everything's going to gel. And I'm glad Arizona has a couple of what hopefully will be nothing more than warm-up games to start the year. Hopefully they won't be terribly interesting. And we'll get an early idea of how good this team can be and how everyone gels between the new staff and existing players from last year.
Bold prediction. Make it right now. I'm putting you on the spot. Arizona has 7 home games. Will it rain as hard as it did during the Utah game last year in November, any of those days?
Well, I think the question is it going to rain at all? Because there are a lot of seasons where it doesn't rain at all.
Correct.
No, probably not. If the season happened during the monsoon, I guess the beginning of the season typically was it's tail end of the monsoon. So if it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen then. I remember the season opener against was it Toledo way back in the day? There was a lightning delay.
Terrible. It was terrible.
Delay. So that if it does rain, typically it's earlier in the season as opposed to later. But what are we going to do, an over under and half an inch of rain or something like that?
What's the most famous Arizona football rain game that comes to mind right off the bat? See if yours is the same as mine at home.
Jeez, I don't know.
One stands out to me.
Well, I would have to say the Oregon game.
Yep, 2013.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If you go look at my Twitter page, and the header photo on my Twitter page is from the fourth quarter of that game, because when the game started, as I always like to say, it was like fairly empty in there, and then it was full by the end, and it was a big upset of Mariota and everything like that. That one, and I'd say that and Utah stand out as like the two most, memorable rain games. RIP Pac-12.
Yeah, and I, in my infinite wisdom, I brought a hoodie to the game, the Utah game. And then I saw the weather forecast. Oh, everything's supposed to be cleared out. So I just left. By the time the game started, everything's supposed to be clear. So I left the hoodie in my car. And then, of course, a couple minutes left before the end of the half, I was dreading it and watching Underground like a big wuss, like a lot of fans were. And I came back and enjoyed most of the second half. But it was fun.
Let me say this. Let me give a little, impart a little wisdom. If you consider yourself a big fan, and it's a big game for Arizona. So, I mean, and the rain is not torrential, you sit out in it. Now, the Utah game last year, Shane, was kind of like in between, because it wasn't a light rain and it wasn't like a pouring, but I'll give some leeway there. But if it's a light rain, don't be that person that goes undercover, right? Like,
you're telling me to man up next time?
I'm not saying to you. I'm just saying in general to the fans.
Okay, it's okay if you want to say that to me.
No, I know. Because that game, the Utah game, like there were times it was coming down pretty good. Yeah. Where I was even thinking about like, all right, this is probably a little much for me. But it was so much fun. Mm-hmm. I didn't care about being soaked. I didn't have anything to do. Just drive home. 2 hours.
That's all. Just
who would have thought we'd just get into rain before we do anything else? All right, Lamont Lovett, color broadcaster for Arizona football, color analyst with Brian Jeffries, going to join us. We haven't talked to Lamont in a long time. We're going to catch up with him. Good stuff to talk about, and looking forward to it. And a kind of an abbreviated buy or sell this week, Shane, but let's get right into it. It is buy or sell presented by our friends at Ice Shaker, which I use on the golf course all the time. Go to iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, get one of those beauties that Shane just drank out of. If you are watching the YouTube feed, And after you do so and you get the post-purchase survey, please mention Wildcat Country, and we will be very grateful if you receive a post-purchase survey. All right, Shane, number one on an abbreviated buy or sell. Arizona's number 21 in the coaches poll. Are you buying that it is too low, or are you selling that it is too high, or neither?
Isn't that kind of two of the same thing?
Oh yeah. All right. Is it too high or too low? All right.
Too hard
Let's
to,
just make it
well,
too
not
high
so
or too low.
this is high or low presented by Ice Sugar.
Yeah. High or low.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to say it's about right.
Okay.
If anything, I think maybe it's a tad low, but I think it's about right. And there are three Big 12 teams ranked ahead of Arizona. You got Utah, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. And then Kansas is number 25. Yeah, it's all reasonable. Although I'm not as high on K-State specifically as some people are, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, and I'm sure we'll have updated predictions for the Big 12 before the season starts. But I think Utah and Oklahoma State especially that's perfectly reasonable. Again, I think if Jed Fish and his staff were returning with this exact roster, I think Arizona would be ranked higher. Like this exact roster, I think they'd be ranked higher. But there is some concern about the coaching change and how everyone will adjust to each other, which is not an unreasonable concern, and it's one that I share. And again, I think Brent Brennan will be very successful at Arizona, but this year I think maybe don't judge him too harshly if things don't go quite as well as planned, especially if they're injured, even if they're not, because it's tough for a new staff and new players to adjust, especially in game situations. Now, it's also important to remember this poll and the AP poll that's going to come out. They don't matter in terms of college football playoff rankings, but as far as where Arizona is ranked right now, it's about what I expected, and I think it's reasonable to have them at that spot, toward the end of the top 25, even though I do think they're capable of moving up if everything clicks right away.
All right. I think that people are going to get upset that they're 21st and say that they should be higher. Come on, this was a 7-game win streak. I get it. Arizona's going to move up because they're going to beat New Mexico and they're going to beat NAU.
Yeah.
So going into Kansas State, Arizona's probably in the range of 15, 16. Kansas State, assuming they win their first 2 games, probably 13 or 14. Just figure, I mean, they play UT Martin and at Tulane. They should take care of business with both of those. So I think you're going to have a top 15 matchup would be my prediction. Arizona against Kansas State, which is great. And I believe that Texas, who's number 4, will beat number 8 Michigan in week 2, and Arizona will have the longest win streak in the country heading into Manhattan, Kansas. Now, can that hold up? I guess we'll see, but I believe that preseason rankings are a bunch of BS and not anything to get upset about. Anybody that does, I certainly hope that you aren't, because they mean nothing.
Have you taken a step back just to think about, Eric, how, because we were doing this podcast through COVID in 2020, that awful year, 2021, they won 1 game, lost to NAU at home. Could you have, think about how far this program has come. They have the second longest winning streak in the country behind the defending national champions. That's insane. And there is a very real chance, like you said, that Arizona could have the nation's longest winning streak going into that K-State game. And it's very possible they end up losing 2 in a row because Kansas State and Utah are very good. But it's just, I am so thankful, and I mentioned this before, be thankful for the good times. Regardless of what happens this year. And I know, anytime if you watch highlights from anytime last season, you see Jed Fish on the sideline, maybe it kind of ruins things a little bit, but be thankful for how far this team has come. And I think a winning season in any shape or form is a good thing. I think Brent Brennan's going to do very well, but I would just say temper expectations a little bit this year. If they win right away and they can, great. If not, I still think the future is bright because I think Brent Brennan was a very good hire.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, assuming health permitting, this Arizona team's really good. Let's enjoy it. But I think you're right, Shane, that we kind of just need to stop for a second and think about even before last year. If you had said, all right, here's the deal. Arizona's going to win their last 7 games of 2023. They're going to, including a bowl game against Oklahoma, and they're going to be ranked going into 2024, regardless of who the head coach is, and going to have their big players back. We're all saying, yep, we're taking that.
100%.
I think the fan base, in my opinion, needs to not be as greedy and say we must win the Big 12. Let's see what happens. Let's see how we're going to find out in September how for real this team is. Yeah. We're going to find out if in Manhattan, Kansas, and then in Salt Lake City. We're going to find out.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. Well, and there's a very real chance. Look, Arizona could be as good as advertised or even better, and they could lose both of those games because those are going to be tough games. But I think the expectation of the average Arizona fan, just based on what I've gathered on social media, and I granted social media isn't always a reflection of real life, but I think the expectation for most Arizona fans would be, look, at least going into the last month of regular season play, be in the mix for the Big 12 title. Still, at least have a chance to be there if you finish strong. I think that's reasonable. Again, injuries permitting or lack thereof permitting, because Arizona was very fortunate in that department, more so than most teams last year. And again, the big one that they had to their quarterback ended up working out okay for them because the Noah Fafita era came in a little earlier and worked out very nicely. But uh, just and I think fans know this already, but I just, not only as an Arizona Wildcats fan, but as an Arizona pro sports fan, I've just learned to guard and protect your heart closely, and I think that long term, I think Arizona is going to do very well under Brent Brennan, but I think that there could be some growing pains in year one, just because I think that's a natural order of things with the new coaching staff.
So Shane, last week on the YouTube page, I was getting some heat from somebody that listens to the show, and I appreciate him listening to the show. I don't remember his name offhand. That I didn't rank Tedero McMillan as the number one receiver in the country, even
Hmm.
top two. Yeah, and maybe I'm ranking him low by saying, he's a top 3 to 5 receiver in the country. Yeah, I mean, he very well could be one or two. We're not, Shane and I are not on this program. I think those of you who've listened for a while, to tell you, oh, we're gonna go to the Big 12. Like, this team is gonna make it there. We're not like it's not a puff show, like where we're just gonna, overly prop up things. We're gonna
Yeah.
tell you how we feel. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're wrong, sure. And sometimes we're right. It's not, we would love, Shane and I are big fans of the program, of all the programs, and we want to see great things. But just because we don't say Arizona's the best, we've had a guy on. I remember there was a guy on Twitter. I won't name him, who I think is a sleaze bag, and well, you guys aren't saying the nicest things that Arizona's winning national champ. Calm down. Okay, we're just trying to tell how we feel, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry if it's not as positive all the time as some other stuff.
Well, I think there are a lot of fans and a lot of people who listen to podcasts, listen to talk radio, etc. That they expect people to ride the wave and expect nothing but praise when things go well, and nothing but scorn and disdain when things go badly. And you're a lot of times I think anyone would be criticized for not being positive enough when things go well and not being negative enough when things go badly. And it's not about us trying to, like, play devil's advocate so much, but it's just a matter of trying to be honest about it and give honest perspectives. And it's just, look, we're just, at the end of the day, Eric, we're just two guys sharing our opinions. And there's somewhat educated opinions from the history of the program, and we keep an eye on things and we take notes. But we talk to people who have played the game and have a little bit more in-depth knowledge than we do. But we're sharing our opinion, and you take it or leave it. But we're not here to sugarcoat things, and we're not here to tell you the sky is falling when things are going badly either.
No, and I think that's it. I think the other thing about this is Shane and I kind of do this program. It's like therapeutic in a way. When
Yeah.
Arizona loses, we can get it off our chest. When Arizona wins, we can celebrate together.
We had a live therapy session during the 2020 Territorial Cup game. Remember that?
Right. Yeah. And Jay
Yeah.
Johnson loved it.
Yeah.
Former coach. He's like, yeah, you guys are great. I love it. I heard that. I was like, this is great. I mean, that's what this show is. We're not paid by the university. We never will be paid by the university.
No.
We just do this for fun. And we've
No.
done this as kind of a labor of love, but also it's also therapeutic. I mean, it is, like we talk it out with each other. We get to talk it out with our guests and kind of like, all right, how do we feel about certain things? All right, I went on a lot of tangents there.
No problem.
Just want to point that. All right. With that said, let's head back to football here. Raymond Pulido, starting offensive guard, out for the season. It sounds like more personal issues. Okay. Mental health things is what I've heard. Wish him all the best, most importantly.
Of
With
course.
that said, Shane, Arizona's offensive line is in trouble by yourself.
Well, when you lose a starter whose role is to protect the blind side of an undersized quarterback, yeah, that's a problem. He didn't start every game, Polito, for Arizona last year. If you remember before the season, he had kind of a fluke injury and missed the first 3 games. He played in 6 games, made 5 starts. Played left tackle when Jordan Morgan sat out the Alamo Bowl. But yeah, considering this looked like, and we talked about it just a week ago, like maybe Arizona's strongest unit or at least strongest offensive unit heading into the season, it's a big loss. There's no two ways about it. The good news is they did load up on depth at offensive line in the offseason. At least, I mean, I should say depth. They loaded up on players that which hopefully will provide some depth. I guess the guy taking first team reps right now at left tackle, and I'm going to butcher his last name, is Rhino Tapa Tapatuai. Here's the thing. I love that the Polynesian pipeline is coming back, but I absolutely hate that I have to try to pronounce these names because it's really difficult for this white guy. But I guess he's a redshirt freshman who was a D lineman for most of his high school days. So he's taking the first team reps right now. I'm just going to call him Rhino because that's an awesome first name anyway. And then you have a transfer from Oregon, Michael Wooten's behind him. So will it be as simple as picking one of those guys or maybe reshuffling the O line to have someone else play the left tackle position? I don't know, but it's definitely, to answer the question, is the offensive line in trouble? I don't know if I'd go that far. You still have three starters back from last year, but hopefully someone in training camp does emerge as a guy who can be as at least close to as effective as Pulido hoped to be this year. And at least they do have some options to tinker with.
All right, I'm going to say no. I'm going to sell this one that the offensive line is in trouble. I think the depth is an issue. We'll talk to Lamont about that. Pulido was hurt a lot last year, had a concussion early on,
Yeah.
wasn't overly great in the bowl game, as I remember. So I don't want to say like he's a savior. Now, if Big Jonah's out, or some of the other guys are out, yeah, then we can have issues. Like you lose Jonah, you got problems. I'm not sure I'd say that with Pulido, so we'll see what Lamont says, and I'm gonna sell this one, but I'm not gonna go overly crazy. I want to see somebody that broadcasts for the team and has been to practice what he says about it. So I'll kind of leave my thoughts a little blank there. All right, number 3 here on an abbreviated buy or sell, well, somewhat abbreviated. Are you concerned about T-Mac's foot injury and him not practicing at full speed yet? Buy or sell?
Well, since we don't know the exact timeline of his return, I'll just address the question of, is it a concern that he's missing practice? And to me, that's a hard sell. For most players, I wouldn't necessarily agree, but Tedoroga McMillan is not most players. He's a very special player, and let's be honest, he and Noah Fafita could run routes with their eyes closed. They've been doing this since 8th grade. I don't think there's going to be an issue there. And the bigger concern, obviously, would be him missing time. Hopefully, even if he had to miss the first 2 weeks of the season, they'd be able to survive without him for the first the first 2 weeks. If it came to that, I don't know, but if it came to that, then hopefully they'd be able to do that. But I think the positive is too, and we talked about it. Wide receiver depth is at least a question. I don't know if it's a concern, but it's a question. Now that Jacob Cowing's gone, who's going to step up? They kind of like offensive line. They have options. They have some names there, but no one with the proven numbers yet. And so I think this is a good opportunity for some of those guys to take some more first team reps and get into the mix and for the coaches to see who might be a viable candidate as someone who could possibly replace McMillan to the best of his ability if needed, but if not, get on the field and provide some depth. And presumably with Lamonius Craig moving up to the number 2 wide receiver behind T-Mac, hopefully there'll be at least a couple of guys who will be able to help spread the field a little bit. And this is a good opportunity to check some of those guys out.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Maybe I shouldn't be. Once again, Lamont maybe will give us some more intel there. But I'm worried about. I want to see him start to be in practice by the end of the month.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real chance, and I don't know, I haven't heard anything, that maybe he misses, the first game. Maybe you sit out against New Mexico, or he's limited in those first 2 games. But as long as he's full go and healthy against Kansas State and onward, that's what matters. Arizona is good enough to where they should win those games, those first 2 games, and not really struggle. I mean, it's a bad New Mexico team. NAU, I mean, this is not the team. Arizona's a lot better than the team that lost to NAU the other year.
Well, of course.
Yeah,
but I think if it was literally any other guy, I might be more concerned about the missing practice time. But with Tedoroga McMillan, I'm just not. I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay. Once again, Wildcat Country is presented by Harrah's Auction Casino, which is the only Valley casino with Caesars Rewards, the player's card that pays for Vegas and more. In fact, the reward credits you earn with Caesars Rewards can be redeemed for hotel stays, dining, and more at 50 destinations across the country, including Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, New Orleans, and dozens of others. Sign up, play, and earn Caesars Rewards only at Harrah's Auction Casino. One card, 50 destinations to enjoy your perks. We're going to have General Manager Mike Kittner, who is a football and basketball season ticket holder, and a diehard fan. He's going to join us here in the next couple weeks. We have not had a chance to speak with him all summer, and so looking forward to catching up with him. And I'm sure he will come on and make some game picks with us during the season. So looking forward to that. But first, it is time to hear from Arizona football's broadcaster Lamont Lovett here on Wildcat Country.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here, and I'm at the Ice Shaker Warehouse, proud sponsor of the Wildcat Country podcast. And I got something new and exciting to show you. We're talking about the 4D printed University of Arizona shaker bottles with the Legacy Championships on it. Check it out now at iceshaker.com.
Shane, excited to have our buddy Lamont Lovett, who is the color analyst for the Arizona Wildcats radio broadcast, back on with us. It's been a long time, Lamont, so we're glad to have you back on. And a lot of things have happened since we had you on last. Arizona holds the second longest winning streak in the country, and now they have a new coach in Brent Brennan. What are your thoughts on Coach Brennan thus far from what you've seen behind the scenes?
Everything's been positive so far. I got a chance to first meet him at our alumni event, probably in, I want to say April or March, around there sometime. Got a chance to actually chat with him, and very impressed with him. I've always followed him kind of from afar, but since he's been here, I'm just I'm thrilled we got him, because he was really the guy that I think I always wanted here, to be perfectly honest. And I know that he wants to be here, and I just think that, the background that he brings, I think that I love coaches that come from small colleges. I like that, because I feel like it's almost like a proving ground for a lot of these guys, and he's used to operating without lots of resources. But at the same time, he's been successful. He's shown that they know how to evaluate players, develop players. And then all of a sudden they got here, they're like, man, this is like the Taj Mahal compared to what we were working with. And so they're here, like they love being here, want to be here, and they really feel like they can build this thing. So I'm excited with everything that I've seen so far, and I think he's going to do a wonderful job here as a coach.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, he was on the Jim Rome show earlier today, Tuesdays, we're recording this, and he talked about how he missed the opportunity last time when they passed him up for Jed Fish, and he thought that chance was gone, and he was thrilled that he got a second opportunity. And I think we all are too at this point. I think he's been very impressive, and we've had a chance to talk to him a couple times as well. Let me touch on something that I think Jed Fish did very well, and we're hoping that Brent Brennan continues, which is reaching out to alumni, bringing them back into the fold. I think a lot of guys kind of felt like they weren't part of the program anymore until Jed Fish and his staff really stepped up and brought those guys back in. Do you think Brent Brennan understands the importance of that as well, and is he off to a good start in that category from your perspective?
No question about it. Honestly, we had probably the biggest turnout that we've had. Like this last one was a huge turnout for the alumni weekend. So I think he's off to a roaring start. And a lot of people already knew Brent around the program anyway. Already had respect for him. So he's been welcomed with open arms, and he's not hard to like, the guy. He's the most likable guy anybody, would want to know. But he's also, he's a more than solid coach. So we're thrilled to have him here. And yeah, he's definitely done a good job with the alumni. I was able to, again, be at the event and see all the different players that came back, and all the guys that are supportive. And I think that's still strong, and they're still keeping the same things going that we were doing with the previous staff, in terms of having the alumni Zoom calls and things like that, keeping that strong connection. That's still there. None of that's changed. So I really don't expect anything any less yet.
That's outstanding. It's great to hear. So I know you've had a chance to check out some Arizona practice. Just overall, couple takeaways. What do you think of this group so far?
Yeah, that's I got a chance to. I was trying to, walking around with my buddy Brandon Sanders, and we were just kind of chatting and looking at everything. And it was the first time I really got a chance to put my eyes on the guys as like this, and since spring ball. And I thought that offensively, I saw some explosive plays. So at times I saw some, really long runs. I saw them get behind the defense on some deep balls. I also saw the defense, making a lot of great plays. So I definitely think from a skill standpoint, they definitely still have a lot of skill out there. And T-Mac wasn't even participating. These were other guys, but really impressed with the running back group from what I've seen so far. I mean, just really impressive. I think Quali Conley, he ripped off like a 70-yard touchdown when I was there. Just really took off, and speed. They were really feeding him the ball. He was making a lot of plays. He looks like just a different person right now, and his explosiveness it's apparent. And then Bill Krosky Merritt is he's the real deal. That's all I can say about that. He is the real deal. And I think that the fans are going to be just thrilled with what they see from him. And I really think that's important for this team because, I don't know how much depth they have on the offensive line right now. And I think running the ball is going to be really, really crucial and really important. And it's a passing game's best friend. And I'm seeing some stuff with tight ends out there that I like. And if you looked at San Jose State last year, they were very dedicated to running the ball. And I really think that you're going to see that from a defensive standpoint, man, while they're schemed kind of the same for the most part, they're running the aggression on the defensive side of the ball is way different. And they're going to cause problems. I guarantee they're going to cause problems for teams because that was the thing that I was seeing. I was like, holy smokes, they are really, really, attacking. And I think defensively, that's going to be a real strength because they've got guys in the secondary that can cover man to man across the board, and they're just so aggressive defensively. And I really feel like it's going to pay some dividends as the season goes on. So they're definitely going to go into the season with the defense being a strength. And I think the important thing on offense is just solidifying the offensive line. And some of the guys were out when I was there, so it was really hard to get a good sense of what I was looking at. But a lot of guys were getting work. So I think if there's anything that that I have a little bit of, I'm concerned about a little bit is just seeing depth on the offensive line. I know they've got some bodies there, but you want to have quality depth on that line. And I don't know at this point. It's just too early, and they weren't really, tackling and everything like that when I was there. So that's if there's a concern, that would probably be that.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You played under Dwayne Aquina, correct?
Yeah, he recruited me. Geez, more than 30 some odd years ago. He recruited me. I know he's a secondary coach, but he recruited me. And it came down to Arizona, came down to Cal, Berkeley, USC was recruiting me, and I think Oregon State. And Dwayne just did just an incredible job of just connecting with me, more than any other coach. And then after I came on a recruiting trip, it was pretty easy to come to Arizona. It was 75 and it was December and I could see the mountains, and I was used to not being able to see the mountains in Southern California because of the smog. So I was like, this is pretty nice. And so, yeah, I made a decision to come to Arizona and haven't looked back. Yeah.
Describe his coaching style. For those who aren't familiar with it, certainly interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, he's just high energy. That's the thing. If you've never been around him before, he's like the Energizer Bunny out there. But he's very fiery, very, very detailed. He has so much knowledge of the game, and he's so much wisdom out there that he imparts on the players. And he's a fair coach. The best players are going to play no matter what. That's just his standard. And he's a straight shooter. I mean, he's going to give it to you. Whatever it is you need to know, he's going to let you know about it. And I really think that's what people appreciate about him because he's a very honest coach, but he's a hard-nosed coach, incredible motivator. One of the things I remember the most about Dwayne was we would be in the locker room before games would start, and the running backs would be sitting in a group, and we were always sitting next to the defensive backs. And, our coach is kind of going over things, you got to do this and remember this assignment, and just kind of talking to us. And then Dwayne would come walking into the room and he's just pacing back and forth, and he's pumping at the defensive backs beside us, and he's getting so fiery. that we're looking over at him, you know, and like, oh my, you know, and he was that type of dude, man, that could just, he made you want to like jump through a wall. He really has that type of energy. And he's like a force of nature. And if you're around him, he's gonna, you know, he's gonna infect you because he's incredible. And when he was coming back, when they were saying he was gonna come back to Arizona, a lot of people were, some guys were like, oh, he's an older coach. And I was like, you guys have no idea. You have no idea. This guy is just an incredible coach. He's got more energy than anybody in the field. But he's just his resume is just impeccable. You know, I mean, 3 Jim Thorpe Award winners. You know, I think 6 finalists and countless players in the NFL, Pro Bowl. I mean, just a phenomenal coach. Maybe as good of a coach that you know, some people will ever see it, but I don't think people really appreciate it. So I have nothing but, you know, the best for him. And he's really responsible for me coming to Arizona because he just did such a great job recruiting me, and yeah, I feel indebted to him because I love the fact that I was able to come here, never left. So yeah, Dwayne's a great guy though, for sure.
And as far as I know, he was the guy who came up with the term desert swarm because he always talked about swarming to the ball. And so from what I've heard from guys I talked to, he was maybe the originator of that.
I don't know the answer to that because I've heard Anthony Jamino say that someone else gave it if you ever talk to Anthony again, there was some debate as to where the coin was termed. I was telling Anthony the first time I ever heard it was we were in the locker room after we played Cal, and our defense was on this tear. We were like on a 6-game winning streak, and they were shutting everybody down. And Brewski said, "You know what they're calling us now?" And I go, "What?" He said, "Desert Swarm," and everybody was like, "Whoa, that's tight," you know, because that was when Operation, you know, Desert Storm had happened, and so that was cool. That was the first time I had heard it, but that, you know, after, you know, listening to you know, Anthony and some other guys, they said, I forget who they said coined the term, but I think it was maybe one of the athletic. Somebody in sports information, I believe it was, who may have done it, but whoever did it, it was just neat. I don't know who came up with the term.
No, it's one of those stories that kind of comes legend, and so it's like who's
It
to say
really
where it
is.
all originated, right? No,
Yeah.
that's awesome though. Let me ask you about this receiver group, Lamont. Not just the wide receivers, but the tight ends. You know, losing Jacob Cowing and Tanner McLaughlin obviously is big. Even if T Mac is ready to go at the
Yeah.
beginning of the season, what do you think about the depth among the entire receiving group this year?
There's definitely a wide variety. There's a lot of different types of body types there. They've got guys that can get behind the defense. They've got some size. And as far as the tight end group, I really think that that's going to be. I think they're going to have much more of an impact, which is hard to believe when you think about how good of a year that Tanner McLaughlin had last year. But I really think there's a possibility because Keenan he is light years ahead of where he was last year. He just looks like a totally different player right now. That was the one thing that stood out to me when I was watching him, you know, run around the field and watching him run routes. He looks faster. He's way more fluid running his routes now, and the dude's just he's got great hands. You know, I think he's going to have a big year. And the way that this team likes to run the ball. They like to play with multiple tight ends at times, from what I've seen. And there's going to be they want to be a physical group. So I really believe that it's going to equate to seeing, you know, some more tight ends in the game. And they've got another kid that transferred in from Sam Olsen, who came in from San Jose State, another big body kid who, you know, I watched him make some really big plays at San Jose State, and from all indications, he's had a really nice camp here as well. And then there's Berto. Berto, he's been here since I think Kevin Sumlin may have recruited him, but he's Berto Miranda. He's you know, one of the best blockers. So you're going to see a lot of different combinations of tight ends, I believe. But that part is really encouraging. As far as the receivers go, you know, Malachi Riley is another name that you know, a lot of people maybe buzzing a little bit about. He's definitely proven that he's a deep threat, and he's a great route runner too. And I understand that, you know, Bobby Wade has had some high praise for him, but he wants to really continue to make him be a complete wide receiver. He's got a lot of ability, great in one-on-one, great route runner. And Jeremiah Patterson, JC kid from San Mateo, is a kind of a little spark plug guy that it really shows that he's a nice, really, I think he's got a nice set of skills. Even though he's not big, he really attacks the ball. He's in the air, runs great routes, and really he's kind of got that burst that you like to see from that position. So he's a really quick, he's kind of a really twitchy type of a guy. Then there's some other names that Montana Luonius Craig. I think he's more of like that blue collar guy, but he's physical as heck out there. So I think that he's another guy too that shown that he's got some ability to make some big plays as well. So they got a variety. They got a nice variety, and a lot of the younger guys that are still coming up. They're making plays, but he's really what I think the coaches want to see right now. While T-Mac is out, they want to really see some guys announce themselves like, "I'm ready," to be out there right now. And I think that's what they're kind of all doing right now. They're kind of rolling the ball out there and saying somebody needs to step up and make an impact. And I think that's kind of the direction that they're going right now and evaluating that right now, Cap.
All right, so two more for you, Lamont. All right, first of all, what is a successful season to you for Arizona football? Is it wins? Is it how they play on the field? How do you define it?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think that I really think that if they can develop some depth on the line, and there's some things that I think that areas that I just need to see answered. I think they're going to be really excellent on defense, and quarterback position is solved. They can keep Noah upright. T-Mac comes. I mean, there's some real ability on this team, so I'm expecting them to win. I'm definitely expecting a winning season. I believe that if somehow they get through the first half of the season with the first 4 games, if they come out of there unscathed, I think that it's going to be really a lot of excitement because if you can go on the road and knock off K-State, who's really been kind of the standard in the Big 12, and head down to Utah, and if you can win up there, I think they got a real chance then, because to me that's the meat of their schedule right there in the beginning. If they can come out of that unscathed, and if they split that, I really think they're in a good position. So I don't know. I think a winning season is obviously a successful season for a first year coach, but I'm hopeful that they can do more than just have a winning season. I'd like to see those guys be contending at the end of the year. And I think that will be a phenomenal season. But to get to a bowl game and have a winning season would be good. But it's just, the caliber of players that they have coming back. So I think it would be maybe a little disappointing if they don't, do something big this year, because I think they really have enough players to do something big. But a lot of things still have to work out, and you got to have some luck with injuries and things like that. But they got a real chance.
All right, my last question for you, Lamont. We appreciate your time. I got to ask you a question because this is something that kind of bugs Eric, and it's about coaches, well, players too. We're going to talk about coaches hopping from one rival to the other, and just the whole the coaching carousel. I feel like it's just a natural part of things. Eric doesn't generally like, but you do have 2 coaches. You got Bobby Wade, obviously, he's a Wildcat as a player, and so I feel like he's just coming home, even though he coached at ASU. But then you have Danny Gonzalez, who was ASU through and through, called Arizona the No 200 gang, and was very into the rivalry, and now he's on the other side of that. How do you feel as an alum, as a former player, watching guys? Obviously Antonio Pierce back in the day, watching guys go from one side of the rivalry to the other.
It's hard to watch them in other uniforms and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, they're back home where they need to be right now. So that's the most important thing. And there's a side of me, that just doesn't like ASU. So anything that involved with them, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna like it. But especially a player being over there. But I'm thrilled to have Bobby Wade here, and I'm thrilled to have Danny Gonzalez here, because I just think they're excellent coaches, and I think they're where they need to be right now. And I think those guys are thrilled to be here. I also understand that in life, if ASU is paying you and somebody else is not paying you, you're gonna go get that money and work. So I mean, it's what it is. But I'm thrilled to have them back here. That's what I'll say about that. Thrilled that they're Wildcats right now and they're absolutely bearing down and they're all about the culture here and they get it. So I mean, I love it. If they like it, I love it.
All right, let me ask you one quick follow-up question then, because we haven't had you on since last season. How much did you enjoy calling that ASU game in Tempe?
Oh man, I yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. It got to the point right now where it's like I really want them to hit 70, and I think they really had a chance to get 70 too, because I think Jacob dropped a touchdown. They were right there on the cusp, but that was fun. They were beating one out of them, and it was those when you're in a moment like that and it's your rival and you got them down like that, you gotta take it in. And that was a fun one. That was a memorable one for sure.
I agree with you 100%. I wish Jed had run it up, especially Jed. If you want to leave, at least run the score up for goodness sakes. I mean, all right.
He's trying.
Yeah, I don't think it was a lack of trying that they got 59, but yeah.
I think they could have gone a little bit more. I mean, I agree with
Well, like they were still throwing the ball with like 3 minutes left, and Calvin got his touch. I mean, what else do you want the guy? The one thing I thought of is that if he had gone for 2 on that last touchdown, they would have gotten it to an even 60. But I
mean, that's a little. Lamont, how did you feel about the last play or last series against Utah, knowing that Arizona was going to face them year in, year out, and they run it up, throwing a bomb to T-Mac?
That doesn't mean anything to me because I've been on the other side of that when Arizona played in Utah. It was Noah's true freshman year. They were blowing us out, and they didn't call up the dogs. So I mean, my perspective on that is if you don't like people scoring, stop them. I don't want to hear none of that because when they have an opportunity to blow us out, they didn't show any kind of mercy on that. So that's part of the game. You don't like it, stop somebody.
I agree with you 100% there. All right, last one for you, and we always appreciate having you on. And I've never asked you this before. Your broadcasting style is a little bit different in that when you hear clips or when you're listening and Arizona scores a touchdown or has a big play, you kind of have like a laugh or a chuckle. How did that develop? And I mean, do you kind of feel that's your style now? I mean, it's very unique, and I like it.
It's just me being myself, to be honest. It's not something that I try. Believe me, it's very organic. There was in the beginning of it, a lot of people used to complain, why is he giggling, this and that? But if you're around me and you kind of know me, you know my personality, that's just the way I am. And what's happening when you see me giggle is like I'm probably like when the plays happen, I'm probably like, Duff! And then and then a giggle comes out because I'm so fired up, that my team is doing good. My heart's beating through the whole game. I'm not sitting there just kind of, being analytical. Even though I'm analytical, I'm still very emotional about the game. So, when my team is doing well, I mean, it's going to come through because I'm Wildcat through and through. I mean, it's real when you hear the little chuckles. It's more of a just excitement type of thing. Like, oh my gosh, and I start kind of giggling. But that was nice, and then I have to talk. But it's just. I don't know. It's just what I do.
And two things about that. And number one, if you hear Lamont laughing, that means Arizona football is doing well. So that's a good thing.
That's true.
And number two, T-Mac made a play against Colorado last year that even made Yogi Roth
that's right. He did do it
on TV, go a little crazy. So
I saw it.
Hopefully we get a lot more of that this season.
Yeah, and you know what I think is cool though? It's authentic. I mean, your reactions are authentic in the moment. And there's a lot of broadcasters out there who kind of have canned responses. Yours are just, this is how I feel. And I think we've seen that for the tenure. You've been doing this for what, almost 20 years?
Yeah, no, it's been more than 20 years, but yes, it's definitely authentic. It's nothing I can't even help it sometimes. I think that through the years, I've reeled it down a little bit. I mean, I reeled it back a little bit, but I'm still, my excitement is there, but you just have to make sure that I'm not stepping on, Brian's call or anything when I'm getting excited. But sometimes, he'll see, it'll be happening. And I'm just sitting there trying to not giggle because I'm seeing the play, I'm seeing the play develop in front of me. But I got to let Brian call it. Get that spectacular call, and then I can react behind it. But it's fun. It's fun. The secret of it is, I just love doing it, and so that's the main thing. I don't like telling that I would probably do it for free, but I would. But that's how much I love it. But I still want to get paid. But it's how much I love it. Yeah.
We won't tell anyone. But Lamont, always great to have you on. Thanks for catching up with us. Been a long time, and hope to talk to you again during the season. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Bear down.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Great to catch up with Lamont. Great chat on and off the air. We had some cool discussions before and after that segment as well with Lamont. Cool guy, and great to catch up with him. Very good broadcaster as well. All right, Shane, we're almost done with this series because in 2 weeks we're going to start making some picks for college football. So we've got this week and next week as far as a year to go over, and we've done this. I think we've covered like 10 or more different years over the last few decades. This year is 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
Arizona memories. I'm sure you have a few. I have a few. I will let you start.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do one. I'll let you do one.
Okay.
Because a couple of them are going to kind of be long. But 2011 was definitely a transitional year for Arizona football. Greg Byrne had just become athletic director, and Mike Stoops' days were numbered, and he was fired midway through the season. So then you have Tim Kish coming in as interim coach. And if you remember, the first game that he coached in, as the head coach in, was Arizona hosted UCLA, and they destroyed UCLA. They were up 42-7 at halftime or something like that. But of course, that game is probably most remembered for the fake ref who ran onto the field. I was actually at that game. I was at that game, and remember that. And then, of course, the big melee that happened afterwards, which is kind of crazy. And one thing I remember in particular was looking at Twitter during the game, way back when it was called Twitter. And I was looking to see what people were talking about with Arizona, because they started the season like 1-5, 1-6, whatever. And they were destroying UCLA. And I saw Brooks Reed, who was in the NFL at the time, had graduated the year or two before, said, no, that's Arizona football. That's what I like to see. And so it felt like Arizona football was back. It was kind of a rocky season the rest of the way as well. And I'll share one more memory, but I'll let you chime in with yours.
All right. So I assume, do you want to go with the ASU game? I know you probably want to talk about that.
I do.
All right, go ahead. I'll let you do that.
You want me to take
My
it?
memory's
Okay.
actually after that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fair. So I was actually doing research for my book at the time. And so I was in the press box for the 2011 game for most of it. You go down on the field for the last few minutes. And I remember standing there with Brett Farah, who's the sports editor at the Daily Star now, and watching the very end of the game. But before that, very randomly, and by the way, that was a big upset for Arizona. It was the last time they won in Tempe until last year. Big upset for it. Looked like Arizona. They got an early lead. It looked like they were going to lose, and they came back and scored 2 touchdowns late in the game. Bryson Burney had the screen pass to Kreiner after Nick Foles got hurt late in the game. And so, but one thing I very randomly remember is I ended up sitting in the press box with this guy who I forget what outlet he was with, but he was kind of like, he was an Arizona alum or Arizona fan or both, and he was kind of like being a little too loud in the press box, like favorable for Arizona. And so at one point I was like, just tone it down a little bit. You're going to get us kicked out if you keep it up. The reason I mention this is because a few years later, do you remember there's a Boston Red Sox game, guy threw out the first pitch and it went off course and it hit a photographer in a sensitive spot. Same guy happened to be sitting next to that night.
Really?
Yeah. I guess he ended up as a photographer out in the Northeast. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
that's a good one.
Go figure. Yeah, go figure how things kind of thread together. But obviously Arizona winning that game was kind of came out of nowhere. That was also at the end of the I think it's at the end of the Dennis Erickson era. Or
It was. Yeah, it was the last game.
Well, actually, it was a weird season because both Arizona and ASU had a game after that.
Right,
Arizona
and so that's
hosted
what I want to
Louisiana.
talk about.
Yeah. So no, go ahead. You take it from here.
All right, so the UCLA game was fun. A Thursday night game, big upset. Tim Kish's first game, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
The Bryson Burney comes in for Nick Foles, throws a touchdown, great. But the scheduling was weird. And by the way, the apathy in the Arizona ASU game was unlike any of the other 20-plus games that I've been to between the two teams. ASU fans didn't care, didn't want to be there. Arizona fans didn't want to be there. It was great to see Arizona actually win that game. Okay.
Yeah.
With that said, the following week was a day game against Louisiana Lafayette on senior day. And it was Nick Foles' senior day, and I believe it was Jaron Kreiner's senior day. But one thing that I will never forget is I got there early. I was with a buddy. I've only gone to one U of A game with him since college, and he came down with me for that game. And Rich Rod was walking around the tailgate area, and I got a picture. First time I met Rich Rodriguez was in the tailgate area before that game.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
That is correct. I still have that picture. I think it's somewhere on my Facebook page. If you search back, it's there. Great guy, and we've met him and talked to him many times.
Yeah, he's been very generous with his time with us. Yeah.
And then I ran into him at Texas Roadhouse last year. Remember that one? Yeah. But that was the first time that I met him, and it was a weird feeling because the game was meaningless. You knew this like Foles, the most accomplished passer and leading passer in Arizona history at that point, and still is. His final game in an Arizona uniform, eventual Super Bowl MVP, and ending his college career in such a bizarre, quiet environment against Louisiana Lafayette. That was awful scheduling, and I hope we never see it again. I not that Arizona has to play ASU in their final game of the year. You know how I feel about that. I know how you feel about that.
Yeah.
But Louisiana Lafayette, whoever scheduled that was pretty bad.
Yeah, and they won that game too, which was nice for senior day and everything. So they were 2-8 before the ASU game, and they won their last two games. So that was the only other thing I remember is because I attended the post-game press conference for Arizona afterwards to do for book research purposes and get some quotes, and got some comments from Nick Foles and Bryson Burney and a couple other guys. But I remember before Tim Kish's press conference, the Arizona locker room, the visiting locker room, was right next door to where they were holding the press conference, and you could hear them singing "Bear Down Arizona" multiple times through the wall. And I remember during the press conference, Kyle Quinn ran in with a territorial cup and gave it to Tim Kish, and he's like, "Okay, get that. Okay, that's great. Give it back to the guys." And so they were thrilled. I mean, it was kind of like in 2016, the same thing where it was a great way to end, even though it wasn't quite the end, a great way to end what was a very challenging season. And I was really happy for the guys, especially the seniors.
Bryson Burney, the only reason I had ever heard his name was because, I played those video games back in the day, and he was the backup to whomever. And right. Then he is now forever in Arizona lore because he won that game. Even though it was a forgettable season, you remember the Bryson Burney coming in for Nick Foles and throwing that touchdown to win the game.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't remember because it wasn't a very good season that Arizona for 1 year had a pretty good 1-2 punch at tailback between Kadeem Carey and Keola Antolin. They both scored a touchdown in that game when Arizona took an early 14-point lead. So they were a good 1-2 punch. Of course, Kadeem had a remarkable second year. But he and Antolin were a good combo, and it's unfortunate that it's crazy that especially on offense with Nick Foles and the guys at running back and Jaron Kreiner, for them to put up that kind of a season, that stinker of a season is just kind of unfathomable.
It happens. Let's hope we don't see it again anytime soon. All right. Thanks to Lamont Lovett for joining us. Great to catch up with him. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.